let's talk about single player games.
Oh, thank God.
I'm a huge proponent of single player games because I'm very antisocial. Even though I guess I play a lot of Rocket League, which is kind of contradictory to what I just said. Um, but yeah, there was a really, really good article from Vice, and I do find that Vice every 3 months or so just releases a really awesome article on just certain things that are in the gaming sphere that no one else has got that scoop. So somehow they've gotten their hands on some really confidential docs from Sony. I think even in the article it refers to we can't show you too much of it because we don't want to compromise
Sources.
our source.
Mm.
But essentially, a lot of the data that Sony sees internally from their perspective, they look at it as single player games are actually thriving on the platform.
Huh,
I think from a dollar perspective, you can't really argue that multiplayer games are not dominating, like they simply are. But then just from a playtime perspective, engagement, single player games are huge. And that's coming through with the Sony data. And essentially, that was a real big inspiration for them for why they developed the Activities feature that's integrated into the PS5, where especially with single player games and open world games, if the developers so happen to take advantage of the features, they can really make it easy for people to go, okay, I can do this little side quest in Miles Morales and it's going to take me 10 minutes and I can get through that, which is massive. And personally, it's massive for me because with a family, sometimes it is just I can only play for 20 minutes. So a lot of the features of the PS5 to me are super appealing because it's turns on quickly, which I always found the PS4 to be really slow to boot up and start and play, just to actually
very
play the
quick,
game.
yeah.
And then for it to just say, hey, 10 minutes to do this little side quest. Okay, I can squeeze that in and then sort of do what I need to do at home. So, Swinny, you're a huge, huge, huge player of single player games.
Hmm.
Does this make you want to switch into being a Sony ecosystem boy?
Come to the dark side.
This feature is not for someone like me. It's not. I
You have no
actually
time.
I like the idea of this feature. I'm not a fan of the feature in many ways, because I think that it depends on the game how I feel, if that makes sense. So a game like Astro's Playroom or Sackboy, it makes 100% sense. Okay, it jumps you straight to the level with the challenge to do it. When you're talking about games where, let's say Red Dead 2, if that had activity cards that just warped you straight to where you needed to be, then you've lost the whole experience of going through the terrain, being on horseback. So to me, it actually takes away from the experience of what the game is trying to offer. But at the same time, the reason why I like the idea is for people that aren't like me, people that are very time poor with lots of stuff going on in their lives. That's a reflection of if I'm the opposite of that. But that have kids that
You have lots of
they
RPGs
can't
around in your life.
they can't sit there playing a game for 2 hours straight.
Yeah.
They, as you said, they're like, okay, I've got 20 minutes. I really want to do this thing,
Yeah,
and it gets them there. But personally, that's what I'm saying. It depends on the game how much I like the implementation.
of
So,
course.
Mm.
Horses for courses. It's, with me and esports, I still think just because I don't
what
like it doesn't mean
esports
it's
again?
stupid or no. I'm just saying, right? It's the same as with you and this. Just because we don't necessarily use something or care about something doesn't mean it's not a good idea, or that there's a huge market for it and a ton of people would use it. I'm the same with the activity thing. I think Demon Souls had it. I didn't really explore it properly, but it depends on the game as well. Would I use it? I don't know. If there's a good game where it makes perfect sense, maybe I would. But at the moment, not really. I kind of just like to go through a game from start to finish and try to dedicate as much time as I can to a single game. So we'll see.
I mean, can I just ask Swinny though? Is this a bit of a background for the audience? One of their most infamous stories with us is, I bought a 360. I think we might have spoken about this, but I'm sure we'll speak about this like 20 times on the podcast. I got a 360. You were checking it out at my house. And I was like, hey, look at this achievement thing. It's kind of cool. It's like, I do something in the game and it logs it. And you're basically like, this is stupid. This is, wrecking the immersion of the game and takes you out of it and everything like that. And I wonder if they do implement in a couple of years' time Microsoft this achievement activity where it's like, hey, if you have 2 hours to spare, you can do this and get these amount of achievements. If you actually become like a massive believer in the feature, do you feel a risk of this little grab being played back in a couple of years' time?
So it still depends on the game. Like that doesn't change. If that feature was already there, let's say accessible to me on Xbox One or whatever Series X, and I'm using it to clean up achievements, 100% I'd use it. Like I'd be crazy because it's all about efficiency. It's all about it. No, it's all about efficiency. When you like wrap up a game, especially an RPG, it's all about min-maxing, all about efficiency to do, especially when you're grinding. How quick can I make it so that it's not taking me, hours upon hours? 100% I'd use it. It's more so when we talk about a Souls game, or as I said, Red Dead 2, where not like it actually changes the experience of playing the game, and it's more so probably for your first time going through the story of a game as opposed to the side activities. Side activities, I think, are where this makes the most sense. But to say, well, this is where I was up to in the game, just walk me straight to where I was up to in the game. I don't know how I feel about it. But it also, and I said this when we talked about the activities feature when we went through the PlayStation Experience video they had, that it also really depends on how many developers actually come to the party and implement that stuff directly, because it's all well and good for Sony first-party titles to do it, but are all, especially multi-platform games, going to do it? Now, we know that PlayStation 5 is probably, especially for the first while, going to easily be the most popular next-gen console for a while, especially player base-wise. So it makes sense for those, for those third-party developers that are doing multi-platform releases to actually focus a lot of time on that. But I mean, there's been stuff that introduced in next gen, in each generational consoles that just don't last. And because developers don't spend the time, they find that people don't really. They end up being a feature that was, that's cool, but people don't really use a lot. So I don't know. So Mike, you said that you haven't used this yet for Demon's Souls. Have you tried it out in anything else, or you had
No, I'm going to try it now when I get back to using my PS5. Okay. But I haven't yet. See, I have a really cool question for you, Swinny. Do you ever take a step back? Because obviously you're huge on achievements and hunting those achievements now. Do you ever take a step back and think to yourself what a massive impact the idea of achievements has had on your life?
Wait, on my life or the way I play games?
On your life in general.
Not
just the way you play games.
That is a separate. That is a can of worms that maybe we should talk about in the future when a good topic comes up around.
I reckon we should. Yeah, it'd be very fascinating because I think it's had a very, very profound impact on a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, but that's an adjacent topic, I think, because there's some interesting discussion to be had there. But
absolutely.
So
let's talk about it someday.
Intergot, as a man with a very busy life, you seem to be all on board with this.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I said this from the start of the show. I mean the show in general. Before the next gen consoles, now current gen, I guess, are out. For me, the Switch, part of it, and I've realized now with the pandemic that I'm not going into work physically. I'm working from home. That there's so many features of the Switch that I really love, but it's based on how it allows me to game and get into gaming quickly rather than having to do other stuff. So for instance, I can take it out so I can continue a game as I'm playing it. So even the game that I'm reviewing that I alluded to at the start that's embargoed, it's like I could pick that up, play it in bed a little bit, play it downstairs, play it, in my, home office setup. Like with the PS5, I really love the features of getting into a game quickly, being able to just go, okay, I can do the side mission, bang. And I get where you're coming from around the immersion, and 100%, you can't argue it doesn't alter it. But ultimately, games are still, there for fun and enjoyment rather than... Not every game has to be some kind of spiritual experience, right? And I think sometimes
that's why it depends on the game. I agree with that. And I think there's some games that wouldn't be suited. I think
taking a bit of a step back, because it was interesting how you're pointing out just around the features. The three big features for me with the PS5, and this is as a non-owner, but this is what I look at, is, the activities that we just talked about, the DualSense, and, the sort of haptic vibration stuff, and then the game help things. And I think those last two will not be used very much at all going forward. Like, you've even heard heaps of stories about the triggers, not working very well in games, to the point where people are just like, this is worse than what it was before because people haven't implemented it right. And then I think especially the game help stuff is just going to die really quickly. Like, I do think that the activity stuff will stick around just because the structure of how you make a game, it's kind of like built around these set pieces. So I think it's pretty easy for them to integrate that in. So I could imagine that sticking around as a really common thing to see in most games. But yeah, like it's going to be interesting. I really like it. I'd be really disappointed if games in the future don't really have it featured prominently. Because I think to me it would be a big selling point in going PS5 versus Xbox Series path. All right, well, let's move on to the next